Wait. So you're telling me that if I channel my inner Aichi Sendo or inner anime character, I won't actually be any better at card games? Hold on. What if I channel the heart of the cards in every duel I have, I won't actually win anymore? You're telling me that I need to spend hundreds of dollars and hundreds of hours actually playtesting all kinds of different decks if I want to get better at card games? You don't understand. I really, where am I? Alright, hopefully that little intro helped us weed out those who can't handle a little light teasing, because let's be honest, this video isn't for you. But if you're still here, congratulations. You're one of the good ones. But I'm sure you guys know by now that I'm not here to discourage you at all. In fact, I posted 2 videos today whose main goal is to do just the opposite. In my years of being a full-time competitive TCG player across all kinds of different games, including the big 3, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic, and Pokemon, I've learned a lot of things. Some of them are amazing and are the reasons I do what I do. Those aren't the ones I'm going to be talking about in this video, by the way. If you want to see those, go check out the other video. Go check out that one. That's the one where you want to hear the nice stuff. And then there are some hurdles that I didn't even really know existed, at least not to their full extent. This video is going to be about the 10 biggest hurdles that competitive TCG players go through. Maybe you've experienced them yourself, or some of them are very new to you. Either way, I'm going to lay them out for you front and center, and I'm also going to give you guys some of the best ways that I've found to maybe help deal with these hurdles, or conquer them even. If by the end of this video you feel you have the inner strength to overcome every single one of these hurdles, and trust me, you will encounter every single one of them, well then, maybe being a competitive TCG player is for you, and you should stick with it and see what happens. So, you ready? Welcome back, everyone. My name is Steven Rodriguez. I'm your true champion, and today we are going to talk about why card games might not be for you. Let's get started. Everyone will tell you that it's stupid. I can't tell you how many times people come into my Twitch chat and tell me that my parents don't really agree with me playing card games, or they don't like that I spent all my money to do this stupid hobby that doesn't really get anything out of it. And I tell them, well, until you actually bring home a trophy or a paycheck or something that validates what you do in their eyes, you're never gonna change their mind. They're never gonna understand why you love playing with pretty cardboard. It doesn't matter how many championships this one guy has won, or how much money this guy gets from sponsorships of being on the Pro Tour for Magic the Gathering. Until you can show your family or anyone you care about a paycheck that validates whatever it is you're doing, they're gonna tell you it's stupid. I've traveled the world playing competitive card games and won plenty of cash prizes, and my parents still don't get it and still think it's a gigantic waste of time. You're just not going to be able to convince people sometimes why it is you love something. You're just not. Hurdle number 2, assholes. What if I just left it at that and didn't explain anything else? No, but seriously, the more you travel the world, the more you go community to community, the more games you play, the more people you're going to be exposed to. And naturally, with the way people work, is the more people you get exposed to means the likelier you are to find someone who sucks, who's a gigantic... So how do you deal with people who are toxic, who are salty, who do things like this?
Fuck! You're kidding! Judge. Fuck!
Yeah, how do you deal with those people? The honest answer is, you kinda just gotta ignore them. The more you feed them with your anger, the more you match their intensity and their upsetness, the stronger they get. And I know that's a tough thing to say, because it's easy to get equally frustrated when someone does something or acts a certain way that ruins it for everyone else, but you cannot join them. You should be the better person. You should be the shining example of what someone in your community should be doing. And the best way to deal with people like that is to just silently walk over. Don't even really talk about it afterwards. Just say, hey, that guy said the F word to that one guy, or that guy is being a real bugger. Trust me, the judges will take note, and they probably have dealt with that guy already as well, so you can easily rectify the situation. Hurdle number 3, competition. So these games, especially if you're playing the big 3, can have hundreds of thousands of players. And if you're just starting out and you want to be competitive from the get-go, you can feel kind of like a tiny fish in a gigantic ocean. Thus, that makes you want to work harder and become more competitive as you possibly need to be in order to see some success. Well, the sad part about that is sometimes the more competitive you are kind of also means the less fun you get to have when you play your game. You have to be kind of rule sharky, you kind of gotta be try-hardy, and that can take away some of the enjoyment you have from the game, which ultimately is probably the reason why you started playing the game. No one plays a game outright trying to be competitive. So if you are a newbie and you want to become competitive at a game and you're finding it to be a little overwhelming at first, don't just dive head first and become like the most competitive person, rule shark everyone, try hard the whole time. That'll ruin the game for you. What you should do instead is slowly try and change your mindset from I love playing this game to I love winning at this game. And this will hopefully help you breed that competitiveness that you want to breed, but also fuel the overall enjoyment that you have, which will help fuel your further motivation to then play the game. Number 4, nobody is going to play for you. It is not Konami's, Wizards of the Coast, Bushiroad's, no one's job to make decks for you and teach you the meta and hold your hand the whole time. You gotta grit down, learn some new things, and try and understand the best way to conquer the meta of the game that you're playing. Because if you don't adapt, you're gonna fail. And that to someone seems very hard. You have to have a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-motivation in order to keep going month by month by month. And sometimes it feels like the metas in certain games change so rapidly that it's hard to keep up by yourself. And sure, you don't have to do it alone. You can have teammates, you can have people who help you, you can have content creators like me try and make the job of learning new things a little bit easier. But you still have to put in the work. And for a lot of people, that's a tough thing to understand right at the bat because, well, I'll get to it a bit later, but this can be very time consuming trying to be good at card games, and some people just feel like they can't sacrifice the time or at the very least do the right things with the time that they have. Understanding who you are and what your individual playstyle is very important, but also understanding how you can change in the future when possible new things come out is equally important. Don't be afraid to go out of your comfort zone, play control, play aggression, or whatever kind of decks there are right now. Don't be afraid to try those things out because you'll never know what'll make you better. Number 5, playing competitive card games is a full-time job, and for over 99% of us, it is a job without pay. In fact, it is a job that costs us more money than it ever will make us. Grinding events, constantly playtesting, constantly buying new cards as they come out, all of these things can be super taxing on your wallet, on your time, and some people just don't want to put in the effort. Well, guess what? Someone out there is, and he or she is going to constantly grind and become better when they're not at the card shop, when they're not at an event. You have to be willing to put in time outside of when you actually play the game for fun or for whatever you're doing to actually try and become better and improve. Because if you don't, you're not actually going to improve as much as other people. And if your goal is to win more tournaments, then you want to become better than the other people around you. It's that simple. It's a lot like that analogy of like a fish who's swimming upstream. You know, like if a fish is swimming upstream and he stops moving, it's not like he stays stationary. He actually moves back as the stream pushes him farther and farther away from his goal. So if you don't actually try and put in consistent work and manage your time well, you're not going to be able to improve really at all. In fact, in some cases, you might fall behind. And that's never good because it's just going to become that much harder to get back to where you were. So, like I said earlier, proper time management is a really important thing when it comes to card games. Understanding as well that you need to put in some amount of time outside of playing the game to actually improve at the game. Research, analyze, predict. Be willing to try and make a guess and be wrong. Otherwise, you're not going to be any different than Joe Schmo who's just, doing the same things you're doing. Try and do riskier things as well is a big thing. Number 6, there is no formula for success. There are some games where it feels like the same 6 or 7 people year after year just keep winning tournaments, and you're like, what did they do? Did they crack the code? Not really. There is no code to crack. There is no magic thing that if I said do X, Y, and Z, you're gonna always win a tournament you play in. And sometimes other people just find a way that works. Doesn't mean it always will work, but it works. But in all seriousness, yes, it is impossible to kind of guarantee success in the competitive TCG game. It is very easy to guarantee consistency and hope and have a good sense of what you need to be able to do, but there's still always going to be an element of luck, an element of uncertainty in every single thing, and you shouldn't let that element of uncertainty make you feel like you're any less good or that you don't deserve to win. It's just the way it is, and the faster you begin to accept that, the happier you will be compared to people who have not accepted it yet. Number 7. Secondary markets. Unless you are professional and you're being sponsored, you're gonna have to try and pay for cards. So that means you're gonna have to deal with secondary markets. And unless you are some kind of genius, economist, clairvoyant badass, you're never gonna really get a good grasp on how a secondary market works, until you get a lot of experience in the card game that you play and in how a secondary market actually works. I feel like when it comes to people and how they look at the secondary market, they think very incorrectly. They think in a profit maximization sense. How can I get the most value for the least amount of money? Thus, if I ever want to sell back my cards, I can actually make a profit. That is how that works. And it should not be how you think, because if you think that way, you will either A, not pay for cards you actually need and want to finish up your decks, or B, you will be one of these awful people that try and manipulate the prices by either creating a monopoly, thus buying everything out so they can dictate how to sell them back, or pray that you can get lucky and buy as many boxes as possible and then still wind up with either too much of one thing and not enough of another thing. I think the better way to think when it comes to dealing with the secondary market or buying cards in general is to take a utility maximization point of view. That is, trying to maximize the amount of value or bang for your buck that you get out of whatever cards you buy. A really easy way to do this is, before you go shopping on TCG Player for whatever cards you're looking for, ask yourself personally, really ask yourself, how much am I willing to spend on the cards that I need? Is it $100? Is it $200? If it's for a playset of a card, it's gonna be $80. Like, how much are you willing to spend? And if you can find the price that's at all equal to that or less than, buy it, because you're willing to pay more than what you're actually spending, and that to you is an internal profit. You're still losing money, but you're actually gaining more value because that money you save can be spent on other cards that, if you want to be a bit risky and buy some things that you think are going to grow in value in the future to try and make a profit, you totally can. Or you can just hang on to that money, and when a new set drops out in the future, boom, you have some extra surplus that you can then use to spend on those cards. That is the much better way to think about secondary markets. It'll allow you to allow yourself to be happier with the purchases that you make, which ultimately is what utility is for. If you focus too much on trying to gain a profit, you will fail most of the time, because there's hundreds of thousands of other people who are trying to do that and failing or succeeding, and if they succeed, that means you fail, which means you are then angry at the game versus angry at the secondary market, which is never a good thing. Always be angry at the secondary market, never be angry at the game. Because, by the way, in case you guys didn't know this, it is not the game's fault that the secondary market exists. It's our fault. Number 8, gaming companies. Let's face it, playing card games would be 1,000,000% easier if it was just like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Vanguard, where it feels like cards literally come out of nowhere and people just have everything they're ever gonna need ever. That would make life way easier, but in reality, if you want to play a card game, that means you gotta get the cards from a company like Konami, like Bushiroad, like Wizards of the Coast. They have to make the game, sell it to you, so that way you can actually play it. And this means that the decisions they make aren't really in your best interest most of the time. It's in their best interest to try and make as much money as possible from this thing that they created. And this can lead to a lot of decisions that are questionable at keeping the game you're playing healthy and fun and enjoyable to be competitive at. I think what's important to realize when it comes to dealing with gaming companies and all the questionable decisions they make is that they are a company. As long as you have the correct perspective on what it is they're trying to do, maybe you can have better gratitude or appreciation for those rare moments where they make community-driven decisions or decisions that ultimately are going to be good for the community. Decisions like making new formats, giving us an updated ban list, reprinting certain cards that are super expensive in the secondary market. These are all kinds of things that we can celebrate that they do versus constantly bag on all the things that they do wrong, because ultimately they're just doing their job. They're not really doing it to spite you. They're just doing it because they kind of have to. You wouldn't like it if your game just died because the company stopped making a profit, right? No. I'm in no way defending when gaming companies make bad decisions, by the way, that ruin the game. I hate them just as much as you do. But I have a bit more perspective as to why it had to happen in order to keep the game alive. And with that knowledge, I can sort of justify it to myself and thus be more accepting of it, if that makes sense. If you're too butthurt about every little decision that Konami or Bushiroad makes, you're never gonna enjoy playing the game, and it'll constantly eat at you until you just have no more motivation to play. Number 9, sometimes it feels like when you're playing a game, it can be hard to know when you're making a mistake. Like, how do you really know when what you're doing is hurting you if you're winning? It requires a lot of self-reflection, self-discipline to hold yourself accountable. And on top of that, with all the variance that exists in card games, you might go a whole tournament making one misplay and you could totally win every single game regardless, because you just got super lucky or your opponent got super unlucky and they lost anyway. So it can be very hard to have enough self-discipline to understand what you need to improve about yourself. One way that I've found personally to rectify this is try a bunch of different things. Don't ever feel like you have to be bogged down in one style of play. The more things you try, the more skills you're going to in general learn, and it won't matter if you make a couple misplays here and there. You'll constantly go back and have more skills than when you started, thus making you better at the game, and you'll have hopefully enough time to realize these mistakes that you're making, either through people telling you or through yourself realizing that you're making them. Number 10. This is probably the worst thing in the history of being a competitive card player, and that's card games die. Over like the span of like all of time, there has been hundreds of card games, and less than like 5% of them make it past 5 years of production and existence. And it's not like they're bad games. There are amazing games that die because people stop playing them, or the company stops making a profit, or the company goes bankrupt. All kinds of crazy things and crazy reasons why games die, but they still die. And that death of a game, it can feel like you're losing a friend sometimes, because depending on how much you played that game or how long you played it, it could be a very important aspect of your life that has a lot of impact on you. And when you lose something that important out of no fault of your own, it's just like taken away from you, it can feel so heartbreaking and demotivating and depressing. And that can bleed into any other games you're playing and make you not want to play competitive card games ever again. No one wants to get burned twice, right? I've had plenty of games die on me. Heck, Future Card Buddy Fight died a few days ago. Like, that game made it, 6-7 years? And it died? It passed one of the hardest hurdles ever, which was the first year. And then it passed the 5-year mark. And that was amazing. And then it died out of nowhere. No warning. And it was crazy. I've found the best way to handle card games dying, either in your local area or across the entire world, is just to understand that they don't actually die. You have the power to keep your community alive, whether that's trying to get your local game store to support tournaments still, or get enough people together to say like, hey, if I ran this tournament, would you guys want to play in it? Get a Facebook group, call people, talk to people. And if you can't do that, try and appreciate the game for what it gave you versus what it's no longer going to give you. This one is one that no matter when it happens, it always hurts. No matter how long the game lasted, it always hurts. And no matter what that game was to you, it probably will always hurt. Because at some point, if you played a game competitively, you put a lot of time and effort into it, like I've already said. So losing it can just suck sometimes. And it's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to, be demotivated sometimes, but you can't let that ruin other games for you or the love of competing, because that love of competition, that love of improving yourself is still always going to be there. It'll just have to be for a different game. Okay, look, real talk. Nobody expects you to have all these things handled. Heck, Some of these things tackle some of the world's biggest problems like depression, time management, regular anxiety. I am in no way saying that you need to have all these things fixed day one before you go on your card game journey. All I'm trying to do is help you guys understand what hurdles might show up for you the more you play the game that you're playing, and if you have a good idea of what to expect, it'll be less shocking to you and it'll hopefully hurt you a lot less. And look, if you guys enjoyed this little slice of reality that I gave you in this video today, but maybe you want a little bit more of a pep talk to try and motivate you to try and conquer these hurdles, I did post a second video today talking about the 10 reasons why I love playing competitive card games. So be sure to go check out that video, link in the description. I think there's a good chance you'll hear something to help you out in there. At the end of the day, I do really want to point out that I think anyone can succeed and become competitive at any card game they play. Because being competitive or good at card games is less about innate ability and instincts, and it's more about sheer willpower to try and drive yourself to become better. And that to me is awesome. So if you're still here, congratulations, pat yourself on the back. I think you are more than capable of doing amazing things in this field of competitive card games because you are someone who wants to become better despite how hard it might be. If you guys have any further questions about this kind of stuff, please feel free to hop into my Twitch channel. I go live every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in the morning, Pacific Standard Time, and I spend a lot of time in just chatting. So if you ever want to talk about what it's like to be a competitive card player, feel free to come and ask me. I'd love to tell you. Also, if you want to join an amazing Discord community full of like-minded people like you who are trying to achieve the same goals you are, go ahead, check it out. I'll go ahead and leave links to all these things down in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really enjoyed making it, and hopefully you guys learned something. As always, I've been your true champion, Steven. Please be sure to work hard, rest easy, live well, stay safe, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.